Top 1% of people doing it, and people forget that because they're comparing themselves to everyone else at that triathlon and everyone else at that race. Whereas, in their office or whatever, they're probably inspiring everyone in their office. Sunday they think, oh, I've done rubbish. But on a Monday morning, everyone's like, wow, you did a triathlon yesterday.
And that was the voice of today's guest, Nick Dunn. And Nick got in touch and said he'd like to come on a podcast and share his journey and also tell us a little bit about his coaching business. Nick's background growing up as a swimmer stood him in good stead when he wanted to progress into triathlon. We chat about how he got into it and the progression that he made from complete novice to double world champion and even racing in some races in the elite field. We'll hear why Nick hung up his tri-suit in 2013 and having spent the last 20 years coaching triathletes, started his own business back in 2011 as a coach and went on to create Challenge Tri camps where he runs several camps throughout the year, a couple over in Mallorca. So we speak all things tri. It was a great chat and I hope you enjoy it. So that's coming up. On a personal front, I've had a couple of good weeks. I started a winter training plan that I got ChatGPT to create for me. And if you're interested in that, head over to our YouTube channel and you can watch all about it. There's several videos up there of what it developed for me. And after speaking to the last guest, Alex Wright, and being influenced by previous guests on the pod, Matt Warren and Robert Myler, who both seem to have got into high rocks training. I've been persuaded to put some in my winter training and it's going rather well, and you know what, I'm really enjoying it, and hopefully I'll come out the other side of winter training a lot stronger all round and injury free, more to the point. Also went and done the local park run, my first park run for a considerable length of time, too long really, and I wasn't sure what to expect because the last time I did a 5k was on the back of the sprint triathlon at Brig, and it didn't go very well. I was really disappointed with the time, and so I was a bit hesitant going into this one. It came about because Mrs. C was meeting a couple of the runners who were doing the marathon over in York with her. They decided to meet up for a 5k park run, and Mrs. C, to be fair, was going to run home, but Storm Amy had other ideas. But the park run went really well on my part, a much better performance, and I was really pleased with it. So yeah, we're going in the right direction. A couple of podcast recommendations. The first one is Runner's World podcast, and this was, although I was listening to it as a podcast, you can also find it on YouTube as a video format, and they were looking at running shoes, the latest and best running shoes for various distances and just for training and racing. So that was pretty good, pretty impressive, and I was quite surprised by some of the picks. And I really do want to get hold of a pair of those Asics Tokyos, I think they were called, because they got a really good recommendation. But I think that'll have to wait till next year, because I really don't need them over the winter time. So if you're into getting a new pair of runners, have a look at that. And the second one is by Oxygen Addict, and he was talking about the necessity, really, about taking time off after the season finishes for triathletes. both mentally and physically. And he recommended round about 2 to 4 weeks, depending on what you've been racing and how your season was structured. And he wasn't suggesting about not training at all, but he was suggesting about mixing it up and getting outdoors and getting into nature. And it sort of like rings true with me at the moment, because I'm still getting out on the mountain bike when I can, when the weather's okay, getting into the woods, and also mixing it up completely by, like I've said before, putting some high rocks training in there just to keep it interesting. So yeah, can recommend that podcast, really worth a listen for anybody who really finds it difficult to stop training or taking a break completely after the season. And then, as ever, there's been a little bit of sport on over the last week or so. We had this weekend the European Championship road racing. I think it was on all week, all different ages, juniors, under 23s, and there was time trials and there was road racing, and it culminated at the weekend with the ladies on Saturday, and Demi Vollering won that for the Dutch, which was great to see, on a lovely S-Works bike, which was hand painted for her. If you've not seen that, it's really nice. It's right up my street. As a gardener, it's got flowers on that, because I didn't realise she was from a background of flower growers. A mum and a dad own this company over in the Netherlands that grow and sell flowers. And then on the men's side, surprise, surprise, Tadej Pogacar won. So adding the European to the Worlds, he won a week before. And Remco Evenepoel came second yet again. But he'd already won the TT European Championships earlier in the week, so he hadn't done too bad out of it. So that was the cycling. And the Super Tri final was on in France, Toulouse, and it looked a bit chilly actually. And the ladies, they were both great races. We sat down yesterday afternoon and watched them, and they were really, really entertaining races. After Mrs. C was just saying earlier on the week how disappointing the racing had been at Super Tri, and they didn't have the big names. These two races certainly made up for that. The ladies, that was won by Jan Leher. She represents Luxembourg, but I think originally she's from France, and she actually resides in Toulouse. So that was a really, really good win for her. She won the race on the day, and she won the overall series. And GB's George Taylor Brown came third overall, and she did really well considering she's not done a lot of that sort of racing over the past year. And in the men's, that was quite tight also. It was won on the day by the Hungarian Songor Lehmann, who's absolutely come from nowhere, and he's just smashed it. And again, he won on the day, and he won the overall as well. If you haven't seen him, well worth watching. Okay, now time for the main event. Hope you enjoy Nick's story, and we shall see you on the other side. So just thank you for coming on and agreeing to do this and sharing your story. Looking forward to listening to what you've been up to. If you'd just like to introduce yourself, that would be great.
Yeah, sure. I'm Nick Dunn. I'm from, based in Nottingham. Spend half my time in Mallorca running our triathlon training camps, which is Challenge Tri Camp. I have been competing in triathlon, I suppose since like 1999, I sort of got into it. Did my first race in 2001. And then, so what's that, sort of 25 years now, I suppose. Competed to like 2013. And then I'd say I probably retired properly then from competing and sort of naturally progressed into coaching. If I think about it, probably half my time's been racing and now half my time's been coaching. So yeah, quite a 25-year journey, I suppose.
Cool. And what did you do growing up as a kid? What was your sporting background?
I was a bit like triathlon, where you sort of master at none, and you're good at all of them. I was fairly good at like tennis, basketball, running. I did a lot of swimming in a club, but like a lot of people, when they get to a certain age at swimming, I sort of stopped at like 13, 14. I probably should have just carried on a bit longer. So I did stop swimming really for about 5 years properly. But yeah, just sort of, I was quite small at school. So I had to battle quite hard, I suppose. I didn't sort of grow till I was sort of 17, 18. So, but yeah, just general sports, I suppose. I didn't sort of master any of them really.
Sure. And you swimming, you said you stopped. Did you get to a certain level at that point? Were you in a club, and was it serious?
Yeah, one of my friends went on to swim at the Olympics, and I always think, I should have carried on, but I was never as good as him. I just used to try and hang on to his heels all the time. Yeah, no, it was quite serious. I was in a club. I used to swim sort of like county level swimming. And yeah, like I did do that for quite a long time. So I suppose growing up as a kid like that did install like a good training and work ethic. And obviously I had different swim coaches and things. So I think I learned a lot about swimming and coaching and sort of how to train, I suppose, as a child. Then I sort of stopped doing everything, like I said, about 14. And, I don't really know what I was doing then, probably just messing around for a few years. But I think it was already installed in then. I know some people come to triathlon or come to sports later and they learn that later. I probably learned that early and then stopped doing it and then got it back, I suppose.
Yeah. I mean, I've said this quite a lot over the years. I mean, people like yourself who've been doing a sport since they were small to a certain age, and it's usually teenagers, at some point you get sick of it. Don't you? You've had enough. You just want to have a normal life. That's how it goes, isn't it? You just like, that's it. I want to try something else or do.
It was funny because I've got 2 children. One's just turned 14, and he retired from triathlon at 7. So I got him to do a season of triathlon when he turned 7, and he did like 4 or 5 races. And then he was like, "Oh, I'm retiring like you now, Dad." I was like, "You can't do." But again, I tried to really install, and he stopped swimming when he was like last year. And again, I didn't want him to stop, but it was, his sort of choice. But I just think we just managed long enough to sort of ingrain the technique really, because it is, and I know again, a lot of people haven't got that, and you can get it and develop it. But I think, anyone sort of listening who has got kids or very young kids, it's just great it's such a difficult sport to master, isn't it? As you get older.
Oh, it is. It's the hardest of the 3 to get hold. If you haven't learned it like you did when you were a child, then it's just an uphill battle, really.
Yeah. I think actually though, I've obviously taught my son to swim from as a swim coach, and I think I learned so much about swim coaching. Obviously I've been doing it for a long time, but with him in the water as well, because I mainly coach adults. So actually having a child that was my own child, so I could obviously probably bully him a bit more than someone else. But it really helped because he had no knowledge of it at all. So that's sort of, I think, helping him to learn to swim and then to swim to a decent level has helped me with coaching as well. I think coaching adults.
Yeah, I'm sure it has. So after you quit, what was the next sporting venture then? You said you didn't do anything for a while. What did you do? What did you pick up next?
Well, I went off to, I went, obviously did sort of PE and things. That's sort of my interest at school. And then I went off to uni and did like sports science and sport sort of business management. And it was there really where I started to do a little bit more triathlon stuff. And I went to do a work placement at a gym, and someone at the gym did triathlon. And in fact, she was, at the time, she was a 50-year-old age grouper.
Right.
And she'd just become age group world champion at 50. And a lady called Leslie Cliff, she must be in her 80s now. She must be. I should look up where she is, actually. And I remember her and a couple of other people used to run like a spin class. So I was on a work placement from university, and I suppose I learned about triathlon at that work placement. And then I was like, oh, wow, this is like, I really enjoy it. And I can still remember, because I hadn't swam for 4 or 5 years, going swimming at this gym and having to do 3 lengths front crawl, 1 length breaststroke, just because I didn't have the fitness and just to get it back. And I'm still a big believer in that. If you haven't done anything for a while, you've got to start really almost like couch to 5K sort of thing. You've got to start slowly and build it up. So yeah, I suppose I was 19 on a work placement, 19, 20 on a work placement. And that's where I probably learned about triathlon, I suppose.
Yeah. And did you then join a club, or how did it progress?
Uh, but the people that did the spin classes and did the thing, they were doing a race, and it was Derby Triathlon. I can still remember it in 2001. And I did the Market Bosworth Triathlon a few weeks before it. It was my first ever one. And it was a novice triathlon. I borrowed, a wetsuit. It was when you had crop top and swimming trunks. So I borrowed someone's crop top and swimming trunks. I borrowed their bike, and I got off I can always remember I got out of the swimming like 6th or 7th, I think. Didn't really know what I was doing, obviously, like everyone. I think I got to 2nd on the bike. I came into transition to dismount. I couldn't remember how to use the clips. I fell off on the dismount line. So all sort of the rookie errors. And I remember, I think I came 2nd or something in the end. And I thought, oh, this is amazing. I've really got the bug for this. And then I signed up for like what I'd class as a proper one, which was the Derby Triathlon. And I bought myself a bike, and I think the bike was like £500. And I thought that was really, really expensive at the time. What it was to me, it was. And I loved this bike, this £500 bike. And I'd had it about 2 weeks, and I got knocked off the bike, and I never made it to the Derby Triathlon in 2001.
Wow.
So that was going to be my first sort of proper race. And I never got to it, which, so that sort of stunt where I was sort of going, really. And then I spent another I had a corset on my back. I'd crushed a couple of my vertebrae. Wow. So from 2001 till 2005, I didn't race, really. I didn't really do anything. So I suppose my first proper triathlon was 2005.
Yeah. So the getting knocked off the bike didn't put you off then? Because it would have put quite a few people off, I think.
Do you know what? It made me very cautious and very more sort of safety aware riding. And I think I must have been, I was 20 when I got knocked off. I can still remember it because I was in hospital, and 9/11 was on the telly, so it's quite easy to relate when it was. And it didn't put me off. It made me very cautious. But what it did do, because I obviously had a back injury, it made me very aware of being strong and looking after your body and moving correctly. So I think I probably spent a good few years before I came into triathlon, sort of like trying to look after my core, look after my spine, lots of mobility things, which everyone sort of does now, I suppose, but it wasn't really as common then. And I think that then really gave me a good base and a solid base that, I'd obviously studied sport at university, and I was passionate about that. So I knew I wanted to come back and do something, but it sort of took me 4 years to build my body back up, I suppose.
Yeah. It's funny, isn't it, how all these little bits that you collect, like you're swimming when you were small, and then, the mobility after the accident, all these little bits come and, later on, you don't think about them at the time, but later on they all become a complete package, don't they?
Yeah. And I think, I'm sort of lucky, lucky almost. I got knocked off, I suppose. It's not luck, but that it made me then do all of those things. And as we were saying about swimming before, I think people that start later in life, they can still get all these things. It's just they might need to do them a bit quicker, or they might need to get help or support, learning the things, rather than, I suppose, I just did it generically as I was almost before I'd even started my first triathlon, really.
Yeah. Yeah. So 2005, your first triathlon in earnest.
Yes.
How did it go?
It was all right. I think I didn't fall off at my first ever novice one. I didn't fall off at the mountain line. And obviously, when I coach now, and I've been doing triathlon a long time, and I love coaching transitions because I can really relate back as well and say my first ever race, I fell off the dismount line, so it happens to sort of everyone. So I did 2005. I can still remember doing that. And all the lads around me were like, shaved legs and all that sort of stuff. And I was like, oh my gosh, do I need to start doing all of that? And I was really lucky in Nottingham. We had sort of early 2000s, like a really good triathlon scene. So there was sort of a lot of men and women doing triathlon in the area. There's quite a lot of racers around here. So I suppose from 2005 to 2007, I started probably doing like 5 or 10, maybe 15 races a year. So I really sort of got the bug and got into it.
Yeah.
And again, that, like you were just mentioning before, you've got to sort of learn your craft. I probably spent 2 years then, just thinking about triathlon and doing triathlon really. Again, because I'd had this break and I knew I wanted to come back to triathlon. When I remember in 2003, I was in Los Angeles. I'd gone traveling for a little bit, and I hadn't done triathlon for 2-3 years since that novice race, and I went to watch like a local triathlon in LA somewhere. So it was always sort of in my head. And I remember when we'd go to hostels, I'd try and pick the hostels on if they had higher bikes, not on like, what rating the beds were or what, how nice the hostel was. If it had a higher bike, I'd try and go to that hostel. So obviously, there was something in there that I wanted to keep doing it. But yeah, so when I suppose I got started in 2005, I was ready to, give it my all for a few years.
So how did it progress then?
So I spent, like I said, 2 or 3 years sort of doing as many races as I could. And it was mainly sprints, to be honest. I preferred shorter course races. I didn't do an Olympic distance. I went straight from sprint to half Ironman. And I remember doing that at Bala. That must have been 2007, I presume. And thinking, oh my gosh, that's a long way. I think I prefer the shorter distance. And at the time, it was probably the right thing to do. I think I got my first speed wobble at Bala. Someone said, oh, you've had a speed wobble on the bike. I was like, no idea what that was. I thought, my back wheel had broken or come off. I remember stopping in the race, checking my bike and everything. But yeah, so... And then someone told me about sort of age group racing and that sort of stuff in 2007. And I had a go at one of the sprint age group races and then one of the Olympic age group races. And I think I qualified. I think I came 4th in my age group at a race. And I got to qualify for the 2008 age groups in Canada in Vancouver.
Nice. Yeah.
So that was but again, it's a massive, and I'm sure there's lots of listeners that have done age group like quite a few times and things, but that first time is so special. I remember qualifying. I think I'd come 4th in my age group, and like coming home and having a family meal and all my family, chatting about it and all being like really proud of what I'd done. And you sort of forget that when you've been racing age group for a while and, you've done it and you've got lots of different, GB suits and all that sort of stuff. But that first one, or just qualifying and knowing that you're going to represent GB at your age group, was like a really big thing. And I can still remember us celebrating that. Yeah. And then obviously as soon as I knew I'd qualified for Canada, I can still remember like using Google Earth and trying to look at where the race was and what the elevation was and all those sorts of things. So I do like the detail of it as well. And then, went off to Canada and did my first ever race, got the suit, some of my family came out to support me, which was really, really nice. And I did everything in Canada that you can do. I went to the, whatever it's called, the welcome meeting thing. I went to all the meetings. I did all of that, and probably a bit too much almost. I was a bit too excited. Obviously my family were there and everything. And I think I came 25th at that race. So my first age group race, I came 24th, 25th. And it actually turned into a duathlon. Just beforehand, they cancelled. Half the people were swimming. And while they were swimming, there were so many problems. There wasn't enough sort of lifeboats and, kayaks out there. So they had to change the men's race into a duathlon. So again, that was sort of muddied it all a little bit. And again, used to make silly mistakes, don't you, when you're new to it. So I thought I'd run in socks, obviously, because I didn't need, it's bike run. And so I'd be all right in socks. But then I hadn't ever thought about having my socks were quite woolly. So then when I tried to, start riding the bike, the Velcro of my shoes got stuck on the socks and all those little things. I can still remember that, thinking, I can't get in my shoes because I've got these socks on. Whereas obviously if you'd have swum, you wouldn't have had socks on. So just things that, I can still remember doing, and all those things that you learn as a beginner, I suppose. But I really enjoyed that first experience. And I think, again, it sort of, and I can still remember running the 10K thinking I can run faster than, even when I'd finished, I thought, I can run faster than this. And so I then knew that I wanted to do another one. And again, you learn that you think, all right, I want to improve. I want to, and it's just so, like, it wasn't, oh, I want to do better than 25th or what. It was just like, I know I can do my set better myself.
And how old were you, Nick, when you did your first for GB?
I think I must have been 26, about 26.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's people haven't even, you probably haven't even scratched the surface at that point of what your capabilities are for things.
Yeah.
Swimming, yeah, you might have done, but biking and running, you're probably not that experienced, and the potential there, isn't it? It's a massive growth.
And I think especially, like, I hadn't really, like I said, I bought a bike, just before my accident in 2001. And I didn't cycle for 4 years on it, really. So I only had a few years of cycling experience. And I think looking back, that's the thing that you really need to build on, obviously, all three sports. But for me, I really needed to improve. I was a decent runner just naturally. Obviously, I swam as a kid, but I didn't have any biking experience. So yeah, I then came back from Canada in 2008 and was like, oh, I'd love to do another age group race. I think the whole buzz of it, the whole experience, I remember, like I said, I did all the stuff beforehand. I also did all the stuff afterwards, going out and just being with different people and things. So then I knew that I wanted to, and again, maybe it's just me, but then I looked at all the names of the people that had beat me and how much faster they were, and looking at the different splits and where I'd lost all my time. And then I knew that I wanted to try and qualify again, which then in 2009 I did all the qualifiers and then went to Australia in 2009 and did it again.
Yeah, but I think going back to analysing, I think that's what we do, isn't it? If you're really into the sport and you want to improve, you do analyse what you've done. You've got to, haven't you, to try and find out where you can get better. So I think that's quite common, I think, in a lot of people. That's what.
And I think, like, if I was, I don't say I'm 40 something now, so I'd probably look at, if I was racing now, I'd be looking at all the 40-year-old names. You might be looking at all the 50-year-old. So you'd know all the names. I wouldn't know any of yours because you're just looking around, not in like a competitive way. You want to beat them. It's just like, how can you improve? Or if they're better at that than you, like, where, if you want to make up places, how do you go about doing that as well?
Yeah, I think it is quite, I say this quite a lot, I think it's quite tactical, knowing, I mean, they say knowledge is power, don't they? And I think it's 100% right, isn't it? It's quite a tactical thing that you can.
Well, yeah, I suppose even down to picking the races and knowing which ones to go to. And it does become, whether it's longer distance where it's based on time and, again, are you turning up to a smaller event so you've got a better chance of getting a qualification spot? Or again, if people have already qualified, or I know sometimes there's European championships on and then there's a qualifier at the same time. So again, it can be quite tactical. Or you've got a friend that's in your age group and they've already qualified, so they might have a peak, a PQ or whatever you call it. So it does, because obviously you've got to do the training and everything, but there is a little bit of element of that in, and making sure you pick the right race.
Yeah, 100%. And you're right there. That thing you've just said, still got to do the training, no matter what. To be of a level, you've got to put the work in. That doesn't. Just because you might be very tactical and you might pick the right race doesn't mean it's a given, does it? You've still got to do the work.
Yeah, and you still got to do the work. I mean, always got to do the work.
Always got to do the work. Where was your second race then in 2009?
So I remember I qualified for the Worlds at Beaver Castle.
Right.
And I qualified second in my age group. So obviously improving. And again, obviously, I knew the person that had qualified first in the eight. Well, I didn't know him, but he was a few minutes ahead of me. So and that was in the June time. So I knew I had some work to do. And then I didn't know him, but in my mind, my target was then to try and, if he beat me, I'll work to at least improve and try and beat him. So I went off to Australia, and which was a long way to go. Obviously, I was fairly new to it. I was still young, I suppose, no kids, not married, all of that sort of stuff. So it's a bit easier. Two of my friends came with me. And I was really serious about it, as in, whereas I'd done everything in Canada, doing everything, I did a lot less. So I still, did some of the things, the welcome things, but I had two mates wanting to go around Australia and go out, and I spent a lot more time. They did that. I spent a lot more time in the hotel room and just sort of chilling out a little bit more before the race, really. Yeah. And I suppose I was fortunate enough to win that. So I became sort of age group world champion in 2009.
Wow.
So that was, I'd done a lot of prep for it. I'd trained hard for it from Canada the year before. And it was a hot race. It was very hot. I remember it's like 35 degrees. And again, they always say it's in the prep, and I did make a few mistakes in that. I can still remember, and this is a good one for people to think about, when you're getting your nutrition and all your drinks and everything ready. The morning of the race, obviously my two mates weren't up. I was getting like the athlete bus down to the start, and I thought, I'll put 2 bottles in the freezer. I made some, whatever, water or gel things up, and I put them in the freezer. I thought I'll leave them in there for 10 minutes just to cool them down. And then I sat on like the athlete bus on the way there, and I was like, oh no. And I'd left all my drinks in the freezer, and I didn't even have a mobile with me. So I think I found someone who had a mobile phone, and I didn't know my mate's numbers, obviously. So I think I rang my mum or my sister or something. And obviously it's, 12 hours difference. So I think it was like 9-10 o'clock at night or something in the UK. And I was like, you need to ring Dave, my friend. I've left all my drinks in the freezer. So anyway, they turned up with them, but they were too late. I'd already started or whatever. And so although I won that and I became age group world champion, everything before it was a bit of a disaster. I was running around trying to find fluids. I managed to get borrow like an empty bottle off someone. I put that on the bike. I went to have a sip of it, and I obviously hadn't put the lid on it properly, and the lid fell off and all the water fell out. So I had no water, or, a tiny bit of water in a bottle for a 40k bike ride. So, everything sort of went wrong. But again, mentally, I just, I'd gone a long way to do that race. I just had to do everything I could during the race to try, like running under the showers, going in the shade, everything I could do possible, because I knew I wasn't in the best. Well, I was dehydrated, obviously. Yeah. But it seemed like I did all right. I seemed to be quite well dehydrated.
It's interesting, isn't it, how things like that just occur, and it's just forgetfulness, isn't it? We all do it. We've all done silly things throughout our racing or prep or whatever. Your best intentions, you get everything squared away, and then for whatever reason, especially when you're like the other side of the world as well, and everything's different, and it's,
Yeah, I don't think I used to use some kind of caffeinated drink, and obviously I'd left that back in the apartment where we were, and I thought, I need to, because I didn't really drink coffee or anything. And I remember going up to some street vendor thing that was there and buying, I don't know, like the equivalent of a can of Red Bull or Monster or something, which I'd never, ever, ever have. And I don't think I've ever had since. But that was obviously, again, maybe that was the key to it, some random energy drink an hour before.
Whatever it was, it worked, didn't it?
It worked, yeah.
So that was in 2009. What was next?
So then so obviously I'd got the sort of full triathlon bug then. I'd become age group world champion, which was amazing, and I was really happy about. But I wanted to obviously keep racing. I was doing lots of sprint and Olympic distances. 2010, I did the Europeans and the Worlds that year. I think I came second in the Europeans behind someone that was just going pro or had gone pro. So I was still quite happy with that. And then I probably learned most about myself, really. I went to, Hungary, Budapest in 2010, and I came fourth. So I was really disappointed from going from first to fourth. I think I was doing the sprint at the time. I think I did the sprint in Budapest. And I came fourth, and I came fourth by like a second. I lost to some Australian guy by a second. And again, I learned a lot. One, about, positions you come and does it matter and does it not matter? And then two, really sort of race tactics. Again, I probably came off the bike in 6th or 7th or something. I was running through everyone, and I ran past him with about 200 meters to go. And again, complete schoolboy error. What I should have done is just sat behind him. But again, I was, too excited, probably didn't know enough. And then obviously he clocked me. He just sat behind me then. And then it was an interesting race because you sort of, the last 200 meters, it was like 100 meters, you went round a cone and then came 100 meters completely back on yourself. And he just got in front of me before that cone. And then as he went round the cone, he kicked. And then because I was a second behind him, then I kicked, but obviously he'd already got that meter on me sort of thing. So again, I learned so much about positioning in races, being aware of who's in your age groups. You know, you're not racing everyone on the course, you're only racing. Well, back then they used to like draw on your, you know, on your calf. So if it was, I think I was E at the time. So anyone with an E, the letter E on their calf, that was who I was racing. So it didn't matter if someone with a D or an F or something came past me. I was just racing the E people, because obviously you've got so much going on, as you know, on the courses, haven't you? There's, you know, some people are on lap 1, lap 2. So, you know, you're not trying to stay with other people, and just one, running your own race and, you know, making sure you're in your own zones or your own, you know, your own pace. But then 2, also being aware of the people that you are racing around you and just not making silly tactical mistakes. Really, I cost myself a podium on that. So again, I think I learned a lot from that. And then that was 2010. So then I qualified again for the Europeans Olympic distance in 2011. And that was in Pontevedra. So that was a completely different course. Australia was very flat, and a lot of, I know you're not meant to, well, you weren't meant to draft them, but it was literally like bunches of people. It was ridiculous. Whereas Pontevedra was basically 10K uphill, 10K downhill, 10K up. I don't know if you've ever raced in Pontevedra.
Just raced this year.
Yeah, so it's very up and down. So a completely different sort of course. And again, at the time, I didn't like descending. And I'm a massive believer in helping people with different elements of the bikes that is a weakness. And to me, descending was nothing to do with, and I'm still not the world's best descender, but I'm a lot better than I used to be, because it's nothing to do with fitness. And I remember getting to Pontevedra, and luckily we had like a car or a van or something. There was a few of us. And the first time I went down, hundreds of people were overtaking me in, like, you know, the recce. And I thought, oh no, I'm going to do it absolutely awful here. And the day before the race, I did like 150 kilometers all downhill. So luckily we had the car. Someone drove me up. I cycled down. Someone drove me up. I cycled down. And I literally did that for, you know, half the day, which probably, again, isn't the most ideal prep. But it obviously worked again, because I won that race, and I won it on the bike as well, to be honest. I think I got the best bike split of the day, and that was purely from, I can guarantee if I wouldn't have had that vehicle, I wouldn't have even placed. Again, prep,
yeah,
that was key to winning that.
I mean, also technically doing that and getting down and going back up, but also from a mental point of view as well, that's like,
oh, I knew every pothole on it. You know, it's not, if it's your home race, do you know, like I live near Home Pierpont, where they do like the Outlaw and the national relays and things. So I used to go around there like 3-4 times a week. So I knew like but obviously when you go away to do a race, you haven't got that advantage. And wherever I was racing, no matter where, I'd always try and do a recce, even if it was in the car the day before or something, because I really think that does help, or the morning of the race if I could do. So it was lucky that we got to do it the day before in Pontevedra. But yeah, I knew the manhole covers, I knew everything, and I was fairly good at climbing. So I knew I needed to go up quickly and then descend sort of at my own ability. Yeah. And there was probably people descending quicker than me still. But again, I knew I'd done everything I could to go as fast as I could down the hill, basically.
Yeah. Well, it certainly paid off. Anybody listening to that, you know, that's it's a good lesson, isn't it?
Yeah. No, it was. And yeah, so I think recceing, of course, if you can, you know, and there's so much more technology now. You can, you know, there's platforms where you can ride the course, you know, 6 months before and do it on your turbo and all that sort of stuff, which I didn't have then. But, you know, just looking at the course or trying to chat to people that have done it before, anything that can give you that sort of extra bit of an advantage is always going to help.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. So where did it go from there then? What did you do next?
Then I got injured, so that wasn't great.
Okay. The same year?
Say that again.
Was that the same year you got injured?
No, I think it was. I seem to have a random thing where I can do well on odd years, and then on even years, I don't seem to do quite as well. So 2012. Well, my son was born in 2011. So that went from, doing or just thinking about triathlon, I suppose, to then having a child in the house, and that obviously changes things. And I did adjust my training and things, and I probably at the time was trying to probably do too much and not getting enough sleep and all those sorts of things. And that probably just led to a bit of a running injury. I just got like some IT band issues. So 2012, I didn't really do too much. I did a couple of elite races. I tried a few elite races. So I did like the super series as it was back then. And I did okay in that. I think I came seventh in one of them. I raced a few of the Olympians a few times. So that was, again, a really good experience, but I was carrying this sort of running injury. So that wasn't great. And then for some reason, I think that I just rest in, do again, because I was sort of from my sort of sports background into rehab and into, looking after myself. I'd really spent a lot of time trying to sort that out, and physio and, lots of rehab, I suppose. Sorted that out, and then I was sort of ready to race again in 2013. So yeah, I did. I suppose 2012 was a bit of a write-off for me. I didn't do any proper age group racing. And then 2013, I'd already decided then that was going to be my last year, because I knew I was having a second kid. So I dropped down from Olympic to doing sprint distance, and I knew it was in London. So 2013 was in Hyde Park. I knew it would be my last sort of proper age group race. So again, I did it, like, as we were just talking about prep before, I remember going down to Hyde Park like 3 months before and riding around Hyde Park at like 5 a.m. On the wrong side of the road, because I knew that the course was on the right-hand side of the road, obviously, because it would be closed roads for the race. But obviously, when you're riding around Hyde Park, when it's not closed roads, you're on the wrong side of the road. So again, just to look at the corners and all of that sort of stuff. So again, I tried to leave no stone unturned, because I suppose I wanted to try and get my age group title back, I suppose.
Sure.
My second son had just been born like a week before. So it was all, again, I was like, oh no, everything's sort of against me again, not in that sort of way, but and I went and look at again. Luckily, I suppose I won that as well. So that was like my last age group race. So and again, I suppose I seem to have a story for all of these. This one, I couldn't get anything to eat the night before that I wanted. I have a bit of a ritual with nutrition. I always, again, and everyone's different, and I think everyone should have some kind of routine. I'm sure most people do. And mine was always to have salmon, rice and salad the night before. And then I'd always make extra and have it for breakfast the next morning, like 3 hours before. And I can't remember now why. Somewhere, I think we were in some kind of student accommodation in London, somewhere near Hyde Park, and none of the kitchens were working, so I couldn't cook it. I couldn't find somewhere. So I think I went to a supermarket and bought some salmon and went into like a fake sort of Subway. And I gave the bloke like 10 quid behind the counter. I said, please just cook me this salmon. I don't care. Just cook it for me, please. And I think I got some fake rice or some packet rice or something. So I can still remember like running around London at like 8:30 at night trying to get my pre-race meal. But yeah, again, that was, I suppose, the learnings I'd had from doing all the other age group races, not getting excited before it, making sure I'd done all my prep. And I think, age group racing is, you're not racing the Olympics, but to us doing age group races, it is like your Olympics, so you want to do everything you can, because that's your biggest stage that you're probably going to race on, or you're likely to race on. So, and that, I knew that for me. So I'd always try and do everything I could to make sure I was ready to, as I'm sure a lot of people do as well, So, I really enjoyed that one. It was a sprint one as well. And they've done it over split waves, which was which did annoy me before I got there. But again, that was just the way it was. So you weren't racing everyone in your race. They did like 2 split waves. I think it's because it was such a big wave, my age group. So and my wave was the first wave, so I was blind as well. I didn't know, sort of what it would be. Or I can't remember if it was the first or the second. I think it was the second one, but I didn't know at the time if my time would be the winning time or not. And again, another really interesting mental thing was, as I crossed the line, as I was going down the finishing chute, there was someone running, this Brazilian guy running towards me. And I was like, why is he running towards me? And I knew he was in my age group. And I thought he was like celebrating or something that he'd won. And I crossed the line and they said, Nick Dunn, second place. And I was like, oh, that's amazing. That's brilliant. And I think I was happy, but then secretly probably slightly disappointed. And then this Brazilian guy had only done 1 lap. So he'd crossed the finish line and then he'd realized, and then he went back out to do his other lap. So I thought I'd come second, but I'd actually won. So it was a bit of a strange sort of feeling going across the line. But again, I was just pleased that I was there. I'd got to do a more age group racing. The crowds were really good. I got to race in London. You got to see the elites. I think it was the next day, and some of those were milling around and things. So I think it was just, and it was great. It was in London, in Hyde Park, and it's great to, I've been to Australia, Canada, Budapest, lots of other places to race, but it was just nice it being at home, I suppose.
Yeah. Well, it's not something that we get to experience very often. I've never experienced racing at home, to be honest. I'd like to at one point if they could if they
take it out of Spain. Everything just seems to be in Spain, doesn't it? It
does, yeah, Spain. I mean, they do put on some great events, and I think that's probably why they get it. But yeah, it would be nice for a change to do something at home. But there it is. Well, I mean, that's a great story. The question I've got then is, you mentioned your family, and that was the reason why you hung your race suit up. Was that the only reason, or was there anything else?
Well, I knew, from sort of almost after I'd finished uni, I sort of went into personal training and strength and conditioning coaching and stuff. So I'd always had like a coaching element, and I was sort of doing personal training while I was, as my job, while I was sort of training for, during these years. And I was almost sort of getting some of my clients into doing triathlon, they probably never heard of one, or at least doing elements of it, just because that's what I was sort of passionate about. And I suppose the last few years of racing, although I was very focused, I was starting to turn towards coaching as well, as in, probably 5 years before I quit, if we were in the swimming pool, I wouldn't have even noticed you in the lane next to me. 2 years before I quit, I'd have probably been watching what you were doing out of the corner of my eye. And then, as I was sort of quitting, I was almost not doing my own sessions, and I'd have been talking to you about what you were doing. And so it was sort of a natural progression, really. I was sort of coming less racing and more coaching, and more interested in sort of helping other people, especially with swimming, because I used to spend a lot of time swimming. I used to swim like 6 times a week. So you're always at the pool, you're always watching people swimming, and there's so many abilities with swimming, isn't there? So many different strokes and styles. And so, yeah, it was sort of a natural progression to finish racing. I always knew I wanted to coach. And then obviously having my second child then sort of changed my home dynamics. I didn't have as much time to train. Since then I went into, I'd already started, I run some triathlon training camps in Spain, in Mallorca, Challenge Tri Camp. And we started doing that actually in 2011. So I suppose that was my introduction into triathlon coaching and running the camps. And so when I quit racing in 2013, it was sort of all about coaching and all about the training camps, really. And then I suppose since then, I've never looked back, and I've always been coaching. Although I did do an Ironman in 2014,
Right.
That was literally just to tick the box to say I'd done an Ironman, you know, because I'd done so many hundreds of sprint and Olympics and quite a few sort of 70.3s. But I'd never done an Ironman. And a lot of people always say to you, do you know, if you say, oh, triathlon, they go, oh, have you done an Ironman? And I'd always have to say no. So I just went and did one. I'd done no training for it or anything really. I obviously had a base, but I hadn't really done much for 9 months. So I went and did an Ironman in Mallorca. So I did know the course a little bit, just for fun, really. And do you know what? That was my most enjoyable race ever, doing that.
Really?
I felt no pressure. I wasn't really racing. I was, when you're doing a sprint or Olympic, you're not really chatting to anyone on the course, are you? Like, so many people you're talking to, especially on the run. On the run, at one point, I was walking, and this lady came up to me or next to me, and she was like, oh, what lap are you on? And I was like, oh, I think I'm on lap 2. She's like, oh, I'm on the same lap. Come on, let's keep going. And she was like encouraging me. And I was like, oh, wow, this is amazing. Like this I was, 30 something, this 55-year-old woman was like encouraging me. And I thought, oh, this is like, although I love age group racing and, I loved sprint and Olympic distance, I've just really enjoyed that race. And I think just the whole community across from sprints or super sprints right to sort of Ironman, it just shows everyone's there, like supporting each other, like in the GB team stuff and the age group stuff. And then even if you're doing Ironman for yourself, there's still, everyone's encouraging on the course. So I did that Ironman for a bit of fun in 2014, just to tick the box. But yeah, ever since 2013, it's all sort of been coaching and sort of helping other people of all ages and abilities. I've helped from elite athletes, especially with sort of strength and conditioning stuff, right down to people that have never done a triathlon.
Sure. So great personal story. Let's now move on. You've mentioned the coaching, so let's move on to that. How did that come about? How did you said you did your degree in sports science?
Yes, I did my degree. Then obviously I've been doing triathlon for a little while. There was a local club in Nottingham that I started helping with a little bit. So I went and did, my level 1 sort of qualification, just sort of helping there a little bit. Then I knew I wanted to do it a little bit more seriously. So I did all the qualifications sort of I needed to do to then start doing the camps. And then really I was, you're seeing 100, 200 people a season. We always do like pre-season training camps. So like, sort of end of February, March time starting. So you see a lot of people and you just learn through doing, I suppose, as well. Obviously I had my own race experience and, I'd done the courses and things and, your practicals. But again, all those practicals never they're sort of staged a little bit, aren't they? So they never get you sort of ready for when you're on a bike ride with someone and they're, in the middle of Mallorca somewhere and they don't know how to use the gears or, they're wobbling or they can't have a drink while they're riding. Or, they're scared to go in the sea and they're worried about sort of, the first time going in the ocean or something. So I suppose I've spent the last 15 years now learning through doing and met some amazing people on the camps that from all walks of life as well, that want to come and take part and improve themselves at triathlon.
Yeah.
And I think not just, people that are trying to, qualify for Team GB, but people that are, never done a race or don't really know about how to do a race. We always try and do something on one of the last days of the camps. We call it like a mini tri, where we try and put like the swim, bike and run together, just in like a sort of a fun, friendly way. And we'll either do it in the pool or use the ocean. And again, it's not a race, obviously, but it's just like, a fun little event. And some people like will finish that and then go, oh, I've never done a triathlon before. That's the first triathlon I've ever done. I'm like, well, it's not exactly a triathlon, but it is, sort of a little triathlon. And that brings sort of just so much pleasure to know that the camps and everything's been part of helping people go and do their first race or then go home and have the confidence to go and then pick a proper race somewhere, in the UK or wherever they're from, and go and sort of take on doing triathlon for themselves. Like I did when I first started, I met an age group lady. She talked to me about it. I borrowed someone else's kit. I fell off the bike at the dismount line. So again, it's sort of a whole journey. I've done all that and then getting to help people do it. So I suppose I sort of really love what I'm doing now and love the camps and love the job, really.
Yeah.
And still to be involved in triathlon, even though I'm not racing.
Yeah. So how many camps do you do a year then?
So we normally run, well, like I said, we've been doing it 15 years. We normally run sort of end of February, start of March. It varies slightly on the season and when Easter is. And then all the way through to like end of April, we'll normally do a camp. Last camp will be the end of April, start of May. Just because that's when people then start to race. So they're sort of pre-season training camps. We have done in the past as well some like post-season camps like October and things. We do like a Peak District camp, which is a bit more mountain bike or sort of gravel bike based. But yeah, predominantly we do the camp sort of March, April, May February, March and April in Mallorca. Cool. So yeah, so I must have done over the years, 10, 12 camps a year. So, getting on for almost 200 camps, which is a lot of people to meet. And I've literally seen every swim stroke and every stuff. And what is really interesting with swimming as well, obviously I've got a swimming background. We film everyone swimming. So it's really interesting. We, as a company, we'll have done a lot of swim analysis with people and seen a lot of different swim strokes. And, there's not one size that fits all. And, some people can get down the pool super quick with some very strange techniques, and other people it's very sort of deliberate and they're really having to think about it and focus on it. But yeah, as we sort of started with, swimming is completely different to, and I'm sure a lot of listeners agree, on the bike and the run to some degree you can sort of get on, and the more time you spend on it, sort of the better you get. Whereas with swimming, it's a little bit different.
It's a lot different.
It's a lot different. Yeah. My son's just taken up playing golf, literally the last couple of months. And I've always said to people, and I've never played golf, so I don't know how I can say it, but I've always said for years, swimming's very much like golf. It's really technical. You've really got to analyze it. And so I've been playing with my son a little bit, just for fun. And I'm like, it's like golf. I've got no idea what I'm doing. I need help.
Another technical sport.
Yeah.
So why did you choose Mallorca then? What was the draw there?
Well, a few reasons. We've got some family based in Mallorca anyway, so it seemed an obvious place. I'd been going there training myself for sort of 4 or 5 years before it, so I knew the island. My wife's brother, as I just said, lives there, and it is sort of a triathlon training paradise, I suppose. It's got everything there. It's got the mountains, it's got flat land and inland loops, it's got lovely coastal roads. The swimming's really good. The climate's good. It's not ridiculously hot, but it's warm enough. It's a good climate, and it's just a great place. It's close to home. It's only a couple of hours on the plane, so it sort of ticks all the boxes really. And there's a lot of, well, I suppose when we first started the camps in 2011, there wasn't as many sort of camps. There was more cyclists. Yeah. I suppose, it's been interesting sort of, I suppose, being a triathlete and running a triathlon business through the Brownlee years with the Olympics. I think that really sort of helped triathlon grow. And I hope sort of the Alex Yee sort of thing now, does continue to do that. And obviously it's built up a brand and it is a name now. Everyone knows what triathlon is. And we obviously want the sport. And we do still see a lot of sort of newbies coming to the sport, which is great. I don't know the exact numbers. It's probably not as much now as when the Brownies were around and it was, 2012 Olympics and things. But it is still great to see people come in to the sport. But yeah, just back to Mallorca. It's just a great training venue. It's a green island as well. It's not very, I've done Lanzarote and all those other things, and they're also great places to train. I suppose I've just been going to Mallorca a long time. I just really like the island. It's just got a nice feel to it.
Yeah, good. So for anybody listening to this who would like to get in touch and either coaching or the camps. How do we get hold of you?
Oh, yeah. Well, myself and my partner Brent Perkins, who's one of their age group team managers, he does middle distance, so he's very into sort of age group racing as well. We run the company, which is obviously called Challenge Tricamp, and we've got a website which is challengetricamp.co.uk, or have a look at, we're on Facebook and Instagram and all those things just as Challenge Tricamp, or obviously either drop us an email, which all our details are on the website. So yeah, website or social media. And like I said, I think it's just about, our camps are for everyone. I think I started as a beginner, and I suppose I've worked my way through to sort of a top age group athlete. But I think it's just about doing what you can do and doing the best you can do. I've coached people over the years that are probably never going to get to represent Great Britain, or they might be trying but maybe not do it, but it's sort of their personal journey really. And if they're improving, I've just finished with a lady that I've coached for years now, a lady called Paula. She literally came to camps and she couldn't swim a length. It was literally like half a length. And each year for like 7 years, she did a sprint, a super sprint, then a sprint, then the next season, Olympic, next season, a middle distance. Next season, she did like the long course weekend. And then she did last year, Barcelona Ironman. Mm-hmm. And she literally just got in the cutoff. I was tracking her all day. And do you know what? Seeing her finish that, and, all the other people that come on camp and seeing them achieve things, but seeing her finishing that was way better than me doing, my age group things for me personally, because I'd seen that whole journey. And I think there's so many people on those sorts of journeys. It's just great. I think that's why triathlon's such a good sport. It's friend, and I see it all the time. Like, it's always like-minded people. And, I'm not putting cycling down, obviously, but cycling can be like, if you're a good cyclist and you're always like in the fast group, you're just sort of always with the fast people. Whereas you can be a good cyclist, but if you're doing triathlon, you might be a really bad swimmer. So then you're with the bad swimmers, say, in that lane. So it's just it sort of neutralizes everyone really. It just seems, and I'm sure you've experienced, and everyone else has. It's when you go to these races, or especially like GB races, everyone's just there, like out supporting each other. And if I've stood many a time on the sideline saying, "Come on, GB," "Come on, GB, well done, can't wait," just shouting people, and you don't know them, but you're just there supporting them. And it's just, I've done that coaching as well, been to races and watched athletes that I've coached and things, and it's just a great sport, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, and I'd just underline everything you've just said there. So yeah, nothing else to be said really.
Thanks for having me on. It's been a real.
It's been great, and I shall put all your details in the show notes, your website and Instagram address and everything else. Just a few quick fire questions before we go, and yours are going to be slightly different because obviously you're not competing anymore. But the first one is, what's your favourite bit of kit? Now for you, it could be, what's your favourite bit of coaching kit?
That's a good question. That is, I would probably say a pool boy.
Pool boy.
A pool boy. The reason I'd say that is because half the time everyone asks you when you coach, can I put my pool boy in? Can I put my pool boy in? Sometimes I let them, sometimes I don't. And I think when I'm coaching people, especially sort of their front end, sometimes I like to take their legs out of the equation to start with. I do actually prefer coaching sometimes in a really small pool. And like right back to when I said when I was coaching my son, it's all about the sort of the brain muscle connection and people learning what they're, not just swinging their arms, but really being focused in on how they're swimming. And sometimes the pool boy, I can take their legs out for a little bit, and I can really just focus on what they're doing with their head position and their arms. So yeah, I'd say a pool boy.
Cool. What's the best bit of advice you've been given?
That's a good question. That is a really good question. The best bit of advice I've ever been given was probably by a coach I used to have. And he was based in Nottingham as well. And he's coached like Lucy Gossard, who's like a multiple Ironman athlete, and a few other very good athletes around me. And he used to coach me years and years ago. And he was like, if you think you're good, you're never good enough. And I can still remember I was the first time I ever broke 6 minutes for 400 meters. And I think I went 5:55 for it. And I think I got down to like 4:20 in the end, but I broke 5:55. And I remember going to see him or ringing him or something and telling him, and I thought he'd be like ecstatic about it. And he was like, "Oh, well done, but you can go faster than that now." And I was like, "What? Where's the praise? Where's the praise?" And that was just he was a great guy. And that was just his sort of coaching style. And I've kept that with some, again, everyone's different, aren't they? With some people that I coach, I am like that now. And I do think of it. And then others I know that wouldn't work for at all. Do you know? So there's always room for more, I suppose.
Cool. And what hints and tips would you give?
Oh, lots. If you've got a big race, do your planning. It is just a triathlon at the end of the day. It isn't life. Do you know? So although the race is important to you, there is other things going on. And don't get me wrong, I've missed a few things for doing sessions that I probably should have been at, like birthdays and things. So yeah, I would say put it all into perspective, enjoy it, make the most of every session as well, because there's so many people out there that aren't doing it. And then also, and I say this a lot to people, if someone's like, they've done an age group race or they've just done a normal race and they haven't done very well, or, they didn't do as well as they thought they would, is like, if they then go to work on a Monday morning, they go in their office, they're still in like the top 1% of people doing it. And people forget that because they're comparing themselves to everyone else at that triathlon and everyone else at that race. Whereas, in their office or whatever, they're probably inspiring everyone in their office. On Sunday, they think, oh, I've done rubbish. But on a Monday morning, everyone's like, wow, you did a triathlon yesterday.
I say that all the time to my teammates, when they're beating themselves up. We are, like you just said, 1%, top 1% of people, because we're in this bubble and we think everybody's like us and everybody does this, and they don't understand it, for one. But we don't get that. We think, oh, everybody's like this, and we don't appreciate how, one, lucky we are, but how not necessarily good on a like a I'm better than you sort of level, but on a lifestyle, living the best lifestyle. It's just and the inspiration, what you've just said there is about inspiring people. I say this quite a lot. We don't know the half of the people that we inspire. You know what I mean? Because people see what you're doing at certain ages and they think, well, if he can do it, I can do it. I'll go and give it a go. I'll go and put my running shoes on and go out around the block. You know what I mean? And I think we do that a lot without even knowing.
Well, I'm currently, I've got a couple of people that I coach. I only coach 10 or 12 people because, again, you can't have too many people. And two of those, so probably quite a high percentage of the people I coach are over 70, actually.
Yeah.
And they are hugely inspiring to me. Obviously I have to plan differently than if I'm planning for a 30-year-old and, more rest days and, a bit more mobility and not quite as much high-end stuff. But the fact that, in fact, one lady, Vicky, she's going into the 75, 79 category next year. And so she's going to be representing GB at middle distance. And like how inspiring. I think like she's my mum's age and I'm like, wow. My mum couldn't run around the block sort of thing. And this lady's doing, middle distance racing. So, I think at any age, but especially, and just enjoy, I suppose, to answer your question, just enjoy the sessions. Just enjoy, I still like going cycling. I'm not competing anymore. I don't swim as much as I probably should or hardly ever. But, when you do it, just make the most of it and just enjoy it.
Yeah. Cool. And my last question is normally what's your long and short term goals, but in your case, I've got a different one. Your case is, as a coach, what do you think of AI?
Oh, that's a good question. I like that. What's AI? No, I'm joking. What do I think of it? I think it's a really good thing. I do think it's a good thing. I think there's loads of information obviously out there that people can then access a lot easier and a lot quicker. what it doesn't do, and again, from a coaching perspective, is, like yesterday, I was chatting to someone I coach, and we were just talking about general things and what we're going to do over the winter and how a season has gone, and it doesn't give the personal side to things. And I know you can even program them to talk to you and say, oh, have a great day and all that sort of stuff, or you're doing great. But I just don't think it has the human understanding from a coaching perspective. Again, I suppose, like I said about, my coach, when I told him I'd done 5:55, I thought I wanted him to be, oh, well done, Nick, you're amazing, you've broke 6 minutes. He wasn't like that to me. And then that probably spurred me on to go, okay, well, I only did 5:55. I want to do 5:30 now, or 5:10 or whatever. So AI would have probably just told me I'd done really well, or that was really good, because that's what I thought I wanted to hear. Whereas, like I said, if someone had said that to me, I'd have different approaches for different people. And I don't think AI can do that. There's no personal, it can tell you what to do if you've hurt your shoulder, or it can give you a plan for a half marathon. But the first ever half marathon I did, someone gave me something out of a magazine, and I just followed that. There's plans around. Coaching isn't just about being a plan. In fact, it's not the plan. It's all the other things around that come from you doing the analyzing the session, talking to you about the session. So I think AI is great. I think it's brilliant, because there isn't a magazine really now with a coaching plan in it. You don't sort of get that as much. So the internet and AI are great to help you with that, but you don't get that personal perspective or that sort of human interaction with the coach.
Great answer. I love it. Well, listen,
hopefully that appeals to sort of all industries as well.
Yeah, covered all bases. Listen, I'm not going to take any more of your time up. It's been lovely to chat to you and get to know you. Thank you ever so much for coming on the podcast and sharing your story, your experience and your knowledge. Much appreciated.
Thank you. Cheers.
And there he goes, Nick Dunn. Like I said, what a lovely chap. And if you're interested in coaching, or you fancy a nice little training holiday over there in Mallorca with Nick, just check out his website page, which is www.challengetrycamp.co.uk. And like Nick said in the pod, you can find them on, if you just put that name in, Challenge Try Camp, you can find them on all the socials, Facebook and Instagram, and see what they're all about. Wealth of knowledge there, both him and Brett, who I've met also, his coaching partner and business partner. So check him out. Thank you once again for listening to this podcast. If you're an age group athlete, please do get in touch and share your story like Nick has on the podcast. And you can email us at agegroupmultisportpodcast@gmail.com. And we too are on socials. We're on Facebook, we're on Instagram, and we even have our own YouTube channel. So check out Age Group Multisport Podcast and it'll come up in the search. Apart from Facebook, which is Richard Joseph Conway. I have no idea why, but that's how it is. Yeah, so please do get in touch and come on the pod. We're always looking for guests. If you like this, please do give us a rating on either Spotify or Apple Podcast. That would really, really help us. And also, if you did enjoy it, please do tell your friends about it. And yeah, that's the way the podcast grows. Or if you've got any friends that are age group athletes, you think they've got a great story, tell them to get in touch as well. But for now, that's it. Thank you once again for listening. And don't forget, stay safe, keep training, and love the process.